Hey guys, welcome back. Happy Monday. Hello UK and Italy. Hey Ruslan. If you guys have specific questions you want to get at the front of the line, go ahead and pop them in now. We'll give everybody else a
Fill 'em
couple
up.
more minutes to log in.
Yeah, sounds like cold hands.
Ah, sorry, I did it right in your, rub my hands right in your mic.
Oh,
All right, we got a,
that's a good question.
that is where we'll start. Vitali asked. FFD?
Is that a plugin?
I don't know. The extension FFD. Fredo's Fruit Drop? I don't think that's right.
I think it's Fredo's. Or no, it's Final Fantasy. What is the Roman
Donuts.
numeral for D?
Donuts.
Oh, okay. That could be that.
Donuts.
Ooh,
Hey
Tim's
Steve, how are
question
you doing?
looks really in depth.
Andy, how's it going?
Read Tim's question before you start answering them so that you can, because that's going to be hard for me to repeat.
The residential landscape question?
Yeah, he wants to just be faster, quicker,
Just play it back
and more
at
realistic.
twice speed. All right,
Boom.
let's get this thing rolling. Hey guys, welcome. We are here, all locked up in our houses as usual. So hope everyone is doing good and staying safe out there. With me today again, as is now the norm, is Jody. Hey Jody.
Hey, I'm finally normal. Hi,
I didn't.
everybody.
I said you being with me is normal. Let's keep it all
Okay,
straight.
well, I'll take normalcy wherever I can get it.
All right. How are you guys doing? Hope everybody is staying safe and staying indoors and social distancing and wearing masks and all the stuff we're supposed to be doing right now. So hopefully that's what's happening out there. That's what we're all doing here. So I actually had. So I mentioned last time we did this, it was I think about 30 degrees and there was a couple inches of snow on the ground. I woke up this morning and what I generally do is come down in the morning, get coffee, important stuff, and I usually come out the garage and flip the heater on just to heat the garage up before I come out here. I did that this morning, and then when I came out to the garage a little bit later, it was like 83 degrees in here. I didn't realize that it's 71 degrees outside right now, so I had two heaters blaring in here, and it made me feel like I was at home, because that's pretty much how hot it is in our studio at the office, so a little more normalcy.
At home, but you are at home. It made you feel
Okay.
like you were at work.
Yeah. Ooh, that's weird. When work is more like home and home is more like work.
It's
But yeah, you can see
really weird.
you can see that on my temperature. Focus. It's closer to 80 than it is to 70. I'm hoping it will cool off. I did turn the AC off because it's loud. But anyhow, welcome. You guys are all here. It's awesome. So we have a couple questions I want to just touch on because they're not like modeling questions. One is, I'm just going to knock this out right now. Riyadh is asking about a 3D mouse. Is it useful? I think it is. I think it speeds me as a presenter. I think I present nicer when I have this nice 3D mouse to work with. And I believe that I design quicker. I think I'm more efficient, less time wasted animating. So for me, 3D mouse has been well worth it.
For me, it's horrible. I can't use it at all.
Well, have you ever committed yourself to it?
No, I mean, I've been committed, but not to that mouse.
So to that point, and I've mentioned this before, but I'll throw it out again, it does take some time. You do have to get used to it. I would highly recommend taking your normal mouse and disabling the mouse wheel for 2 or 3 days and only animating with this. You're gonna spend the first hour getting pissed and going up and clicking, zoom extents, and then you're gonna try again. You're gonna spend some time doing that, and that's normal. That's how it should happen. But eventually, like I said, I did that for about 2 days, and then I felt pretty good, and I've been pretty consistent with the mouse since then, and I could say it goes pretty well now. Okay. MCAD did post a link to an extension. I will take a look at that. We won't do it online, but I did see that you requested that. I will take a look at that for sure. And then somebody is asking about classical furniture modeling. We'll actually be doing furniture modeling this Friday. So come back on Friday, same time, and we will be doing that. Thank you for the input. Hi, Boston. Okay, so the first question we had was about taking an object and slicing in two, as if with a knife. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a couple ways to do this. And I'm not going to start with I'm not going to use just a standard cube. That's a little boring. So I'll come in here and put some additional geometry on here. So we'll go pull something through like this. Pull this out like this. All right, I'm going to say that this shape is something I want to cut in half. I'm going to do this a couple different ways. So I'm going to copy this over here at least once. So one option would be to just create a plane. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to stick on this plane. Just a great big rectangle. I'll take that rectangle and I'll move it to where I want to split. So I'm going to say I want to split it, right here is perfect. I don't know, wherever that is. What you could do then is come in context. In context means inside the group. So I'm inside the group at this point. I could select all and say Intersect Face with model. So that's going to hit everything in the model. The only thing it's hitting, though, on the outside of the group is that plane it created. So I'm going to go ahead and say Intersect with model. And now what I can do is I can take this section right here, copy it, paste it over here. There we go, that's that half. And then if I want to, I could actually just do that again. This time I'll just grab those same pieces, delete them, and there I have my two halves, and that's easy enough to just close that up like that. So that would be one option as a way to split that geometry. Another option would be to use something like Solid Tools. So I'll do the same thing. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to create a rectangle on this plane. And instead of just moving it to intersect this time, I'm going to use push-pull and pull through that spot where I want to cut it. And now I will take this and make it a group. Now what I can do is I'm going to grab this whole setup, copy it over here. I'm just thinking of interesting things to show, by the way. This maybe is not the best solution. I'm going to take this rectangle and I'm going to push-pull it through itself the opposite direction. And because I flipped it inside out, the outside faces show, so I'm going to hit reverse faces. So now I have two of these getting overlapped by rectangles from both sides. Now what I can do is I'll go to View, Tool Palette, Solid Tools, select my cutter first, say Subtract from here, and it gets chopped off like that. Select the cutter again, subtract from here, and there we go. That's the same geometry I have here, just created with groups instead. That is just using just the simple pieces. There are extensions out there that will cut at an intersection plane, or I'm sorry, at a section plane. So I go in and create a section plane, so I look inside of it and then say, break my model at that point. I think there's some other cutting tools too. Zorro, that's one of them. Remember, because it has
That's a great name.
Yeah, you're going to cut something, call it Zorro. So yeah, so check that out too. I haven't used it, but actually I have used it. I used it a while ago. It does do what it says. It cuts stuff. So give it a shot.
Are all the instructions in Spanish?
I don't think so. I think it ended at the name. Just a cool name.
I think that it should only cut things in a Z form.
Yeah, no matter what you do, it just goes like that. That would be a fun but possibly useless extension.
There's not a lot of questions yet. Rob Roy wants to know if you can hear him through his mask.
No, louder, please. We're social
And
distanced by an unknown large number of feet, so.
it's variable.
Yeah, we got lots of highs. People yelling in. Libya.
There was someone hoping everyone was
Wales,
okay on the SketchUp team. I haven't heard
Chile.
of anybody on the SketchUp team actually having it yet, right? Have you?
I haven't heard anything. So, I mean, we try to keep pretty well connected, and everybody's trying to keep business as usual. So, checking in. We have a lot of hangout groups going on. So, trying to stay actively communicating with each other, checking in. And I haven't heard anybody say they've gone down. I've heard people say they know people or have relatives who've gotten sick, but I haven't explicitly heard anybody on our team say that they're got hit with it yet. So,
And so far, I don't even know anybody that's been confirmed to have it. I have one friend that thinks he has, but
I
who
have a
knows?
friend who had a roommate who had it. I'm like, oh man, lock him up.
We're starting to get a little too far out. Okay, so Barry McFadden, a while ago, he asked this earlier at
Okay.
12:02,
Oh,
7 minutes ago.
way back.
And I don't know if you can help him. He just said sometimes when he makes a component, it doesn't group the geometry. I think that's maybe.
We can do that.
Well, I think I know. You show it.
I believe the issue is right here. So this is just loose geometry. It was a group, and then I broke it apart. So if I select this geometry, right click, and say make component, there is a checkbox in here that says replace selection with component. If this is turned off and I make a component, it has created that component. That component exists. In fact, if I come over here to components and look at what's in here, this component right here does exist. But this right here is still raw geometry. You have to have that checkbox turned on so that it takes your raw geometry, throws it out, and replaces it with the component in the exact same location. So I'm guessing, go ahead and verify this right now. I'll stick around. Make sure that that checkbox is turned on, because most of the time if that doesn't happen, that's exactly why.
That was my guess too. I support your answer.
Great minds.
Kay Brooks asked if you're up for answering any DC questions.
If we keep them on the surface, yes.
Okay. Also, while they're rephrasing that, Leon wants to know how good SketchUp is for interior design.
Oh, we have, I was going to say countless. I'm sure we could count it, but a lot of interior designers who love SketchUp. The nice thing about
There needs
SketchUp...
to be
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm done.
Oh. You sound so defeated. I was going to say the nice thing about SketchUp with interior design specifically is that SketchUp moves very quickly, so it's real quick to easy to iterate ideas and that kind of thing inside. We have a lot of people who will do design reviews with their customers sitting right there at SketchUp, so they can actually go in and move stuff around. The other thing is our 3D warehouse with it was just over 4 million models available. It's super easy to find assets to put into interior design. So yeah, great tool for interior design. If you go to our YouTube channel and look for a video called, Jody might even be able to find the link, but the top tips for interior designers. An interior designer named Tammy Cody came by and gave us her top 10 tips. And it kind of shows how she uses SketchUp with interior design in mind. So check that out.
And she has her own YouTube channel, it looks like.
Yeah, she does put videos up, does training, that sort of thing. Absolutely.
Matthew Cole he has a 1 kilometer wide city model and having lots of trouble with clipping. So if you've got any definitive methods to eliminate the clipping on a large scale model like that?
There are many reasons that clipping might happen. When you have already identified as a large model, it probably has to do with the fact that you have a large model. 1 kilometer is not huge though, it's not ridiculous. What I would recommend doing is one of a couple things. At that point, model maintenance becomes a huge piece of getting the most out of SketchUp. So that means putting landscape on, tagging it separately from buildings, tagged separately from entourage. Only have visible what you actually need. When you're moving around, don't have everything visible if you don't actually have to have that. If you're working on a portion of the model, you can use section planes. SketchUp only draws the screen what's actually visible to you. So if you grab a section plane and chop your 1 kilometer square in half, then it only has to draw half as much. So SketchUp draws everything on the screen that's visible. So that means, like, if I look at, yeah, well, I'll just leave what I just said. The other thing that people run into when they're doing things like city models or something like that is using high polygon models in their model. So if have a tree or something and you have all the branches and leaves and it's render ready, that can definitely cause problems with being too heavy of a model, which can cause problems in clipping. So the other thing, if you have a big model like that, take your model and put it so that the middle of the model is at the origin. One of the things that causes clipping is having geometry too far from the origin. So if you're looking at a square kilometer, if you bring that in, then nothing is more than, 2/3 of a kilometer away from that origin. That'll help a lot too. So sometimes people have it and they have their thing modeled and it's hundreds of miles from the origin, and SketchUp always has to keep in mind what's over here at the origin, so you end up with weird clipping there too. So those are a couple things to check out for sure.
Did you mention the preserve origin when importing a DWG?
No, that's a good point too.
That's one thing that gets a lot of people when they're bringing something in from AutoCAD is if they have it preserve origin, then all their stuff may be completely away from the origin, and then all of a sudden you've got, because AutoCAD or a lot of CAD programs don't really care about that origin
Right.
location.
Yeah, depending on the CAD you're bringing in from, it may have something like world coordinates or local coordinates, or sometimes transposing those across programs can cause problems. So people bring in original data, end up putting their data, halfway around the world distant from the origin, and that can cause problems too. So I did see a question just a moment ago asking about soap skin and bubble, giving that.
I saw one. Isaru had an error message. Is that the one
Yeah,
you saw?
time limit
Yeah,
finished.
time limit finished. Yeah.
Go upgrade or update. Usually that's it.
Yeah. Actually, Dave Richards answered that
Oh,
3 lines lower down.
phew.
So you're slacking,
I
or
guess
you're
so.
just too talkative.
Well, I'm just not as fast as Dave, and I've accepted that.
Okay, that's fine. He doesn't have to use audible words. He can use
That's right.
visible words. Manny Hepburn wanted to know about exporting models from the 3D warehouse without bringing its materials, i.e. export it to his model with default face colors.
Nothing that I know of. There might be an extension out there that does something like that. What you can do is, I always recommend, if you're going to bring in something from 3D Warehouse, don't bring it directly into your working model anyhow. Download it, open it up, and then you can do things like go in and delete your color. So what I could do is, this model right here, I do have a handful of colors because of Laura. So what I could always do is I could come in here and, remove these colors. So I could actually take this red, remove it, and say replace with the default color, and that'll get set back here. So I could come in here and just work my way through and delete them. I believe there's an extension to remove colors as well. I don't remember what that was though. But if that's what you want, is just to get those colors, you can pull a model out, remove all the colors out of it, and then take that file, then save it and import it into your working model. I say don't bring it directly into your working model because it's hard to get a full appreciation for what's inside of a model when you're looking at it on 3D Warehouse, because you can't see everything. You can kind of do some orbiting and panning and zooming in a little bit, but you can't really get into it, select pieces, toggle hidden, check tags. You can't do all that while you're looking at it in 3D Warehouse. So I always recommend downloading and opening it. This is just my workflow too. If you have a different workflow and it works for you, that's cool. I try to download it locally, look at it first, and then import it into a model. That just prevents it from, sometimes download something that seems it should be innocuous, and it turns out that the dishwasher I downloaded has 7 million polygons because who knows why. So that's something else you can check for when you import.
So So K Brooks came back with their possible surface level question
Okay.
about DCs. Can options be programmed to be invisible until a parent option is chosen?
No. UI is UI. There's no control over if UI shows up in a dynamic component. I can't think of any way to make UI change. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
I don't think so.
Um, I'm an architectural technician and have been asked by my boss to draw up some new house designs in SketchUp. None of the colleagues are fans of SketchUps. So, what's the best style to use to show off SketchUp at its best?
You're our, we love you. No, you are what we call an advocate, and that's awesome. And I love that you're hanging out with us here. And
That's Nicola on Facebook.
we also love just that rebellious spirit that you have. That's awesome. You know, don't just go with the flow. Do what's best. Check out alternatives. That's awesome. So, what I would recommend, I don't know that there's a single style that works best, but as you're working through learning to work in Sketch, so the thing that sets SketchUp apart is from other models is that you've talked about the look. Some people think it's cartoony. Absolutely. You have full control
That's
over it.
exactly what they said.
Yeah. You have full control over that. If you go to your styles window, you can come in here and there's a couple things you can turn off. Profiles is one thing. Profiles is that darker line that goes around the outside edge of something you're looking at. Sometimes turning that off gives a crisper look that people prefer. The other option is to turn off edges altogether. Then you're looking at just a kind of a solid model, shadowed, hidden look like that. I would highly recommend, it's going to slow down your model, but you could check out shadows too, because turning on shadows will definitely give a more realistic look. It is processor intensive, so if you turn on shadows, it is going to slow your model down a little bit. Generally speaking, one of the things that wins people over to SketchUp is its speed and ease of use. So regardless of the style, what you're actually working on, the fact that you could come into a model with your coworkers, go make changes, change things, whatever it is you need to come in here, make modifications to, you can do that live while you're sitting there with your coworkers is what gets people to go, oh, maybe I should check that out, because we've seen live design sessions happen where people went through with customers or coworkers where they go through and just kind of overhaul an entire design, entire model in, half an hour, something like that, where traditionally they'd be modifying the model, generating output, sending it over, there's 2 hours gone, get response back, go do that again. So hours and hours and hours versus sitting down and working in it. That can make a big difference for people. So that's something to consider showing that. As far as a specific style, I don't know that there's one style that is a professional style. I would say that look at it and see what's going to look closest to whatever your coworkers are expecting out of CAD. The nice thing about SketchUp is, given your styles here, you can pretty easily emulate other looks. So between your styles and then your camera settings over here, where you have things like your field of view, so you can actually change, how exaggerated that field of view is, or even going to your camera and changing to parallel projection if that's something that they want to see. Play with that, and not that I'm saying you should always emulate another look when you use SketchUp, but to ease that transition to make it look like what somebody's used to, it can really help with your cause of advocating for SketchUp where you're at.
So Mikhail Blongberg asked this a little while ago about finding the heaviest object in your model, like a component with the most faces. Do you have any recommendations for finding your bloated models?
Yeah. It seems like there was an extension, I'm trying to remember now, that would find maybe Dave or somebody out there, John's out there, somebody, Chris is out there. Do you guys remember an extension that would find your components in your model by face count or something like that? Statistic selected. That's true. Oh, is that that's the name of it? Dave is recommending statistic selected, which I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, will give you information about selected geometry. Because, oh. Yeah. Sorry. Keep it simple.
The KISS method. So Go Fly Drone asked how to, so this one's one you do all the time. So it's probably good just to take a moment and explain it. How to import a picture, but keep it in 2D so you can see it all the time from any angle within the model.
Yes.
Hello?
Sorry, I'm trying to follow Dave's suggestions. Under statistics, I only have entire model or only components. I'll come back to that when you tell me what to do. Yes, so if you want a picture, I do this a lot for reference photos. If you go into your styles and across here, it looks a little bit different for Windows than it does for Mac, but you do have these tabs right here. This fourth button is Watermark. If you click on Watermark, you can load an image. So if I go grab this thing right here, and it's going to start by putting on like a watermark, so like an image laid over the top of your model. The purpose here is to actually, if you print this out or something like that, you can put your watermark over it. So this is a cool way to put like your logo or you know, preliminary, you want to put a watermark onto your model, something like that, you can do that. But what you can do also is say, I want to put this in the background. This is going to sit behind your model. So now, no matter what I do, no matter how I move this around, it's always going to land flat and back like that. So what I often do is I come in here and I say, you can do this, you can put a slider, so how much do you want to see? I usually set it to 100%, and then I usually tuck it into a corner. So I say position window, usually up here at the upper left corner, something like this. Make it just big enough so I can see the information I want on it. And now I can come in and work on whatever my model is and always have that information up there. So that's an option. If that's how you would take an image, put it on your screen so it stays the same no matter how you're zoomed in. Would be like that with a watermark. So that's a good question.
So Derek on Facebook asked, the other day during the Airstream modeling, you modified an arc just by moving an endpoint. How did you do that?
So let's do that. So I'm just going to put an arc here along the red axis, and I'm going to pull it vertically along the blue. So the way move normally works, if I go into move with nothing selected and I hover over, say, a group, I can click, grab it, move it around. You guys know that. If it's raw geometry, I can move on to something like a surface, move that. I can move over a line, move that. Or I can move over a point. And then I'm moving just that point. Arcs are kind of funny because as I move them, they'll actually scale. So I'm not just grabbing that end point of that last segment and moving it over. I'm actually going to cause the scale to resize and distort depending on how and where I move that. And that's all I did. I just happened to grab the end of an arc that was, I think it was flat. I don't remember. I grabbed it, pulled it over, so it did just kind of expand the arc as I moved it. So pretty simple. Move is nice. A lot of people don't realize that if you go straight into move, you can from there grab whatever point you want and then make changes. So if you grab an end point, then that means you can actually deform that geometry from that point.
So Tyson on Facebook asks, well, it's rather lengthy. He opens with our favorite sentence. I love SketchUp so much. Know it's been discussed on the forum, but I'd love to hear what you plan regarding UVs for SketchUp. Will SU ever integrate native UV capabilities? He understands. It sounds like he understands that we can't talk about our roadmaps, but he'd at least like to hear your thoughts on the matter. Even if your thoughts are use a plugin or
I'll say that there's a handful of great plugins for UVs. I mean, personally, I like that SketchUp does and always has focused on what they're good at, which is 3D modeling. And I think there's a lot of tools out there that get distracted by bringing other workflows into their core competency. I don't know what the future will hold, and if I did, I couldn't talk about it. But I've never been bothered by the fact that if I want UVs, I can go grab Wrapper or Sketch UV or something like that. So I don't know. Like you said, unfortunately, can't say much about it beyond my thoughts. And that's it. That's my thoughts. That's all I got.
Hey, well,
Sorry, Tyson.
At least you have some. Okay, so this is. I think there's a good question in the middle of this. So this is Manos on Facebook. When I make a house floor plan and make the walls, there are a lot of times that the walls are not solid. So he can't make and then subtract the doors and windows. He uses Solid Inspector, but no result. So he would like to know, or IQ to show the right way to make a floor plan. I think this is one of those we ran into before, where sure would be handy if you had some floor plans on your computer.
So I'll say this. Pardon. Don't worry. It was not a dry cough and I don't have a fever. I'll say this. So first is my disclaimer of, depending on what you want out of an architectural model, you're going to potentially change your process for creating that model. It sounds like you want to use solids, which is awesome. That's cool. What you may want to do is you just be conscious of how you break your model down. So there is, maybe Jody can find it, we actually have a Skill Builder playlist of architectural modeling, which walk through exterior walls, interior walls, doors, windows, floors, roof, like all the different major pieces of a house and how to do that. So maybe we can find that. What I would recommend is, and this is just going to be kind of a dummy version, but if I got to turn this off because this is distracting me. All right. So what I would recommend is, as you're working through here, get your exterior layout. So this is the shape of the floors of my house, something like this. Oops. So if I get that, so that's just tracing my exterior walls. Then I would do an offset of whatever my wall width is. So I'm going to do 5.5 inches. Then pull that up to whatever my height is, 9 foot. And then what I would do is I would triple click and make this a group. That's my first group, is my first floor exterior walls. This then can be made solid. So if I wanted to come in with whatever my door is, so if I create my door, so jumpy. And I could actually bring this through and then subtract that from here, and I could make those cuts real quick and easy. When you get into interiors, it's not quite as simple because, well, again, this kind of comes down to what you're going to use it for. What you might want to do is take each wall as you create it and make it a group, because that's going to make it a simple solid. The problem a lot of people run into when they're doing architectural models like that is you end up with so many lines, so many pieces, so many things. It's really hard to watch as you do each piece and make it a group. But that would be my recommendation, is try to do that. The other thing to keep in mind as I do this is, so if I do this, so now I have two solid groups meeting at the corner. That's great, but that also means I have these extra lines. So this line right here, for example. And that's where what I have to do is come in here and then maybe just shift erase this line. And, oops, I did not shift, I alt erased that line. Sorry, shift erase that line to hide it. Shift erase that line to hide it so that I get a normal corner right there. In fact, if this is, I'm spewing thoughts now. If this is an issue, if you do want to keep each wall as a separate solid, like I said, that's awesome. It's a great way to do it. You might check out an extension from Enerot called Visual Merge, which will actually do some of that kind of stuff automatically and get rid of those overlapping lines. So those are all things to think about. So if there is a specific model you're having a hard time with, I would say head to the forum, make a topic, and if you can, post the model, because then somebody can actually take a look at it and maybe help find, maybe there's something that you're doing along the way that's causing them to not be solids. But yeah, it's a good question.
Sorry, I was typing answers, and so I wasn't scrolling through looking for great new questions. Nepali on Facebook did ask about how to make dynamic components through coding. I sent him a link to your videos. So just so anyone that wants to learn about dynamic components is aware, there's a 8-part video series at this point. 8?
And I will say, there is no coding in there. I do know that's possible.
What about math?
Yeah.
Is there any math in there?
I will venture into math if I have to, but I can tell you that I did not use any Ruby scripting of any kind. You know, actually, that's something that question's come up, I don't know, dozens of times. People want to see videos on the basics of coding, basic Ruby scripting. And that's never been my thing. I'm not sure if that's something that's interesting to enough people that we could go in and try to learn that together, but yeah, Ruby scripting falls outside of my area of expertise or knowledge, so I won't say that I did it by code, with code. I didn't point this out either, but I did create a topic for this, so if you guys have files you want to share, images, anything like that, you can hop over to our forum, forums.sketchup.com, and pinned at the top is a live Q&A today topic, so you can go on there and check that out. Yeah, I forgot to call that out earlier.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Now I didn't remind you, so
yeah,
I guess I'm equally guilty.
Well, I think it's mostly your fault.
Okay, good. All right. Wait, my fault? Dang it.
Next time.
Let's bet 20 said, can't push pull opening to offset limit. Cutting stays connected to wall and only extrudes inward and outward, but never removed.
I would guess something is out of plane. It's not easy to show, but here, let me see if I can cause a problem. All right, so these walls look pretty close to being parallel normal, but that back plane is just off of being parallel, so it will never actually let me remove the face. I can get close to the face, but I can't actually take it and cut it out because this wall is not perfectly vertical. So if you have something like this where you're push-pulling, it's possible that there's a problem where something's not quite right. There's a couple things you can do to fix it. First thing I always recommend is turning on hidden geometry. Show hidden geometry, because that'll show you sometimes what will happen is you'll have a break. Autofold is this cool thing that happens inside of SketchUp when you move geometry, where it says, you know, this face will break into multiple pieces in order to accommodate the fact that you're moving the edge. So autofold's great because it can let you create really cool geometry, but if you're not paying attention, it can take what looks like flat geometry and actually put wrinkles in it. And you can see those if you turn on hidden geometry. The other thing to check out, like I said, I just took this and I moved this bottom out just slightly. You can actually check coordinates, see where stuff is, just by using the text tool. So if I take the text tool and I move it up to an end like this and just click, it's going to give me the XYZ coordinates. So if I do that again, I'll put one on this bottom here. So if I look, whoops. So you can see right here, my X coordinates are the same, my Y coordinates are off by 1/8 of an inch. So that's where this is actually pulling out. Then of course my Z coordinates are different because it's the top and bottom of the wall. So those are some things to check out. Again, I would recommend post to the forum and let somebody take a look at it and maybe help you out. It's hard with stuff like that because it's usually something specific that's going on that's preventing this from working. And sometimes it's hard to guess what that might be without being able to see the model. So if you have an example you can share, I would suggest posting on the forum and letting some staff or Sage or other forum members take a look and maybe help you troubleshoot.
So I have two different ones that are kind of to deal with curved surfaces. So I'll go with the first one here. It says, imagine you would unfold a world map from a globe onto a 2D surface. And if you did that, dang it, scrolling off the screen. Do that process in reverse. You have to tell your sphere how you want a world map to texture to be mapped onto it.
Right. We're back to UV.
Yeah, and it's interesting is this is Architecture Inspirations on YouTube who corrected me and my gross simplification of UV to mean fancy textures, which it's not.
Right. It actually has more to do with the exact placement of the texture on the geometry.
Maybe he was explaining it to me, and maybe he's not asking a question. But
oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that would be the problem. Or that's exactly. So what you're describing is what UV mapping does. It sounds like you may already know that. But anybody who doesn't know,
I think
that was a good example.
Yeah, no, I think I do now see that he. I'm just basically reading out when he corrected me. Thanks again.
That was an A and not a Q.
Yay! I love it when those come from the other side. Okay, so here's the other curvy one. What's the best practice to cut openings in curved walls? Should one use two solid forms and use the unions to cut?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would, if you do have something like a solid. So let me just do something like this. I'm gonna take this shape and offset it ever so slightly, connect these two together to get a face, and then pull it into 3D space. I'll turn my hidden geometry back off. If I can make this into a solid group, then the easiest solution is to, come in here, create a second solid that is my cutter, make that a group, and then I'm going to do this 2 times. Do it once with solid tools and once without. So with solid tools, I select my cutter, go to my solid tools, say subtract that from this, and I get a hole there. If I don't want to do that, if I don't have solid tools, or this is a piece of bigger geometry or something like that where I can't make it a simple solid, I could take this geometry loose like this, so it's just loose geometry. I'm going to take my cutter geometry, I'm going to say reverse faces, and I'm going to grab all this geometry that intersects, right click, intersect face with selection, and I'm going to come out here and start erasing away my geometry on the outside. And then I can take these faces right here, delete those, and delete that. So what happened was these two faces got cut by that cutter, and the cutter got cut by those faces. So these pieces right here are actually the leftover pieces of that cutting rectangle I had in there. I reversed them so that after they were cut, what was left behind was facing inside of the hole. So those would be your options for cutting an arced surface. It's not as simple as draw a rectangle on it and push pull. One thing you could do is you could get into extensions and use things like tools on surface to create lines on the surface, and then something like joint push pull to push it through. But it really depends on what your actual needs are and how difficult you need to make the process.
Okay, so a while ago, Nanda asked if these videos are available to watch later, which ties into an additional question from Eric on YouTube, which was, as architectural models get larger, when working on small details, you have to zoom in very close and clipping. So I would say to Eric, probably you need to go back to our answer of the clipping question earlier, and to Nanda, we have it available online. Do you have any thoughts on clipping whenever it's tiny versus whenever it's giant? Or do you feel like you covered that earlier?
No, we talk specific about big models. If you get too big, then you may run into clipping problems, and that comes down to, like I was saying, maintenance of the geometry you have, and also watching location of geometry versus the origin. So if you're far away from the origin, you're definitely more likely to hit problems with clipping. If you're small, you hit the same problem where the camera ends up going through geometry because it's too tiny. And that's where I always recommend scaling up to work on something small. So if you're modeling jewelry or something like that, build it at 1,000 times scale and then scale it back down for whatever output you need to do, because little teeny tiny geometry can be rough also.
I think I actually had, I don't remember which engineer. I think I had an engineer on the SketchUp team explaining what's going on with, like, whenever you're zooming in like that. And the issue is that you've got what they called a near field and far field kind of camera that it's trying to capture. And as you zoom in, you end up with stuff behind the camera, which is causing it to have problems. So like zooming into the middle of something with geometry far in front of you and far behind you can also lend to the clipping.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not sure how much scaling would fix that or not, but
I had somebody explain it to me as if you were to go in and take an architectural model and build it out of like balsa wood and foam and plastic and whatever, like used to in architectural school, and then you wanted to get real close, you just smashed your face against the edge of it. That's basically what happens when you experience that clipping plane. Is the camera's coming so close to geometry that you're going into it. More
it's basically
technically,
like whenever my kids want to show me something, they come over and stick it immediately in my face, and I can see nothing.
yeah. I still have to tell my kids, I'm like, I don't focus real good right here. give me
This is
give me at least this much. Give me at least 6 to 12 inches of focus space. Ugh.
so it's all applicable.
Yeah. But and to answer the other question, yes, this file will live as part of our Facebook. If you're on Facebook, it just is part of the stream. On YouTube, it'll actually show up in our library and the SketchUp Live playlist.
So Colin was nice to actually grab a question that had been asked in Russian. I'm not sure if your answer, you might need to answer this in Russian. I'm not sure. But the question was, how do you resize a finished part? Which may just be the scale tool, or it may be the
Well, if I have to answer in
resize.
Russian, I can only say da, because I think that's all the Russian I know. And I'm not 100% sure on that even. I think that means yes.
Yeah, that's movie Russian.
Yeah, that's right. How come? All right, just because we're hanging out, we're having fun. Who decided in movies that like German people speak English to each other in German accents? If you're two German dudes and you're talking about something, wouldn't you just talk in German? I mean, it's so funny to me that like I keep watching these movies where I'm like,
Obviously,
I don't know.
obviously you're not German,
Apparently,
Aaron.
yeah, it's true.
You just wouldn't get it.
Okay, well here's something I get. So if I wanted to take this geometry right here and rescale, let's say this is supposed to be 2 inches tall. Obviously it's a lot bigger than that. I'll draw a line right here. It tells me it is 32 feet tall. So if this is supposed to be 2 inches, what I do is I would take it, triple click, and make it a group. Put all the geometry inside of a container first. Then I'm going to double click to enter the container, and I'll grab my tape measure tool and click from the bottom of one side to another side. Somewhere just end to end on a line that I know the size of. So I'm gonna click, when I click here, right down at the bottom, it tells me what the length is, and I'm gonna tell it what I want it to be. So I'm gonna say 2 inches, hit enter. Do you want to resize the active group or component? Yes, I do. There it goes, it gets teeny tiny. If I come out and see, here's the original one, and right down here, is my new one.
That's adorable.
It is.
What is that? A curved wall for ants?
That's right. 2 inches tall. It's a little tiny guy. You could 3D print this. One could.
Oh, okay. I thought you were giving me permission.
But sorry, Blake just said, because Americans don't want to read subtitles. I think that's true.
So this is funny because that's sort of true, but I've found that on all of my streaming services, I turn on subtitles because half the time I don't understand. You know, like even if I'm watching Americans talk, I'm just like, what did he just say? And I have to look down and read the text at the bottom. It's whenever I have to read the text that I get all cranky.
Yeah, when you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Don't tell me to read.
I like the option.
I'm here to relax.
Someone asked if you could use the extensions in the web version.
You cannot. You do have to have Pro to use extensions. It's a limitation of the language we use. Ruby is not available through browser software. So that's where we're at right now. That's what we got.
There's lots of people answering questions in here.
I love it.
I don't have enough questions.
That is so cool. This is. I'm just gonna brag about you guys real quick because I think that far and away we have the coolest user community, the best user community that I've ever been a part of or ever seen. Real quick, my background has always been in software. I've been working at software companies since I was in high school, and one of the things I did a lot of was reviewing other softwares. So I've counted up, I can't remember, I've used pushing 30 different drawing or 3D modeling packages over the last couple decades. And one of the best ways, of course, to learn something is to go look at their online resources. Everybody has videos or documentation or forums. And I gotta say, I have never come across a group that is open and honest and working so hard to help each other as the SketchUp community. So thank you guys for being so awesome because it makes our job so much more fun and better.
So I'll second that, and then I'll return to questions. I scrolled up, and there's one here from JDC AMC. We'll just say JDC for simplicity.
Yes.
Can you match a color that you downloaded from the internet to an existing material? Or how can you do that if you can?
So it's slightly different depending on what the UI you're using, but you can. It's in a different spot. I don't know if you remember where it is, Jody, off the top of your head. In Mac, when you bring up colors and you go to the main color right here, you can actually hit this little eyedropper, and it gives you this control, and you can move your mouse over any color on the screen. So I could sample this blue from the upper corner right there, and then that'll show up in my dropper, and then I can put that on something. The other option, of course, is to come in here. Where is it? Right here, I could type in a hex color. I could change my sliders to CMYK or RGB and put those values in. So it's pretty easy to find to adjust colors to match something. Something I'll point out though, I just want to point this out because many people have hit this. This actually, let me get a slightly lighter color than this. So this is a little easier to see. All right, if I look at this face right here, I put one color on here, a specific color, but you can see because the way the light hits it, it's lighter right here than it is right here. See how it gets darker along the edge? SketchUp does have kind of this faux lighting effect it places onto surfaces. What actually happens is the camera, as it looks at a model, projects the light in the scene. So there's a faint light coming off of you because you are our sunshine that changes
only
the colors
sunshine, or?
As we look at it. What's that?
The only sunshine?
No, it's not the
I
only
thought you were starting to sing "You Are My Sunshine."
That's what I was getting at, and I couldn't stop. I had to laugh. So you can see this face right here and this face right here. If you imagine the light coming off of you as the viewer, it's creating kind of a shadow, a darker color right here. So that is something that can be compensated for because I can come in here to shadows. And shadow settings is kind of interesting because it does have the ability where you can come in here and change the actual shadows that fall on here. But even with shadows turned off, you can control your light and dark right here. And using these, I'm trying to remember what if I turn use sun for shading on instead of my own face, so this is a little more consistent because the sun's in one spot, I can actually take this and, is it 80-80? That gives me a list. It's 80-20.
You can also click in the box and type it.
I like sliders. All right, if I go to 80-20, then I actually get a consistent color. So you can see there, I'm not getting as much shadow as I was before, but these can actually be played with to give yourself precision colors as opposed to, like I said, that lighting. So if you're, I just mentioned that because you mentioned bringing in an exact material. A lot of times people bring in materials and they're like, oh, this looks way too bright or way too dark. It could be a function of that lighting. So something else to consider.
I just looked on the Windows version, and the dropper is right there, like in the very front section of the materials picker.
Okay.
It's like right next to
right up here.
Colors and Model.
Okay.
It's on the right side.
Right here.
It's right above that picker.
Okay. So if I was in Windows, it'd be right up here somewhere.
Exactly.
Learn something new every day.
You might already known that. It might have just been a refresher.
Yeah. Maybe.
Derek on Facebook asked a little while ago, what is the value of, he said it's a noob question, but I think it's a good one. What's the value of making something a component versus making a group?
Excellent question. There is two main things. So I'm going to make some geometry right here. I'm going to make this a group and make a copy of it over here. If I open up this group and I change it, this group exactly the same. If I come over here and make a cylinder, I'm going to triple click and make it into a component. This is thing number one. Components prompt you for information. It says, what do you want to call this thing? What do you want to put in attributes? Has some additional information there like gluing or always face camera options. All of this is only available if you're creating a component. Once I create it, this is one of the nice options. Oh, I messed with my replace selection. Once it's created, if I come in here and I change this, all instances of that component are changed. The third thing, the other thing, and this is really nice, is components actually end up getting saved as part of the model. So I can come back at any time and add another one of these, and it'll be, like I said, it's just another one of these components. So that's, in a nutshell, the three big differences. The tie between them, the info you can put in there, and then the component browser that lets you add them back into your model later on. Good question.
I got confused because Don Smith asked if his question wasn't clear, but I don't remember if I saw what his question was.
So
Don Smith, you had a question. You might re-ask it because it was so clear I couldn't even see it. I saw right through it.
Crystal clear.
Yeah. And Tim F., I think he's asked this a couple times now. Is there a way to use dimensions to change the size of an object like Fusion 360 sketches? And I might have sort of just skimmed past the first time because it sounds similar to using our tape measure tool.
Yeah, tape measure, not dimensions. Dimensions are basically the same as
parametric.
Yeah, they're
which was another question. There was also someone asking if there were any plugins or ways to do parametric in SketchUp. And I didn't know there were extensions out there, but I think Dave said there was at least one extension out there for parametric modeling.
Yeah, there is, and I can't remember the name of it. It's from somebody who has a handful of extensions, and I'm totally blanking on it, but it works. It's very grasshopper-like, where you put in values, and then you can modify those values to create geometry in SketchUp, but I don't remember what the name of it is. Yeah, somebody might have to find that and share a link because I don't remember off the top of my head what it was.
Okay, so here's a long one from Facebook, Nathan on Facebook, and I'm trying to basically get the nugget of the question itself. He says he does a lot of renderings or a lot of models for clients purely to give him a 3D view, and he'd like to figure out a way to make a style where it could fade out existing things and highlight new construction items. It would look like editing a group while the rest of the model fades out. He doesn't like fog. So fog's not the answer, but he would like for a way to be able to call out parts of a model. Maybe layout and masking,
Yeah,
or maybe masking in styles.
it looks like I saw a couple links go by. First, I gotta say, hey Nate, I actually went to school with Nathan, so
Okay.
it's
Does
kind of
Nathan know
It's
that?
kind of funny actually because we reconnected at the last base camp in Boulder, which was 2012. Is that right? I had showed up with a bunch of my coworkers, and they all left and ditched me. And Nate was nice enough to give me a ride home.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun. Like I didn't know, we just kind of ran into each other and hey, how's it going? So off the top of my head, the things that I would think about would be, yeah, potentially layout or post processing. That's like my immediate thought.
Tyson mentioned the fade/hide components feature, but I think maybe that's what Nate was already talking about. Like he wants something similar to that.
Yeah, because you could. The problem is, I don't think you can. I think if you export this as an image, it won't keep this. I think it will take everything not hidden like that. But yeah, I'm trying to think of something to do with layout too, because that was my thought too. Is there a way to output? Because what you could do is set up a scene. So say this is my scene I want to create. And then I could do stuff like in this scene have everything turned on, and then maybe if I want to call attention to this right here, I could put everything else on a different tag. And then I could write in this scene, I don't have my tags visible. I could turn that off and then export those two pictures. So I could export this as an image and then this as an image, and then play with my opacity outside of SketchUp. The other thing I would check out is it SketchFX has some really cool filters that you can use. I don't even understand how it works, but it uses a combination of layer or tags along with styles, and it creates some amazing stuff. So I'm not sure if it can do what you're asking about, but I would check out SketchFX and see if that's would help at all.
Do you know if that's on our extension warehouse
I
or
believe it is. Yeah,
Sketchcation?
it was. And we actually have a video on it. I did a video on it a while ago. Definitely worth checking out, though.
Okay. Okay. So Don Smith repeated his question. I have a model with an object that rotates on x-axis with on-click animate, but he'd like to be able to move the same object along the x-axis also. It's a DC question.
Rotate and move? You should be able to do that. Yes?
I'm horrible. I'm a horrible dynamic component guy. Every time I learn something, it goes in one ear and out the other. Okay, I see there's a SketchFX Pro and a SketchFX X. That's confusing.
Yeah, check that out, Nate, and see if that does what you're asking about.
It ain't free.
I have a model with an object that rotates with an on-click animate. If you're saying one or the other, you can't do that. On-click is only one thing. On-click is it's just binary. When I click on this thing, whatever I have there happens. So you can't choose whether on-click's going to do this or this. You could possibly, with on-click, put different functionalities on different levels inside like in different nested levels. So if I click on the outer level, it rotates, but if I double click and then click, it's going to move. But I don't know it's getting messy. That's where I'd have to play with it and experiment. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Viz
I
Pro
don't really
Fluid
understand your
Interactive
question
was.
100% either. So
Oh, sorry. So yeah, he actually asked if it wasn't clear, and then he repeated the question. So maybe he can make a clarifying. I'll watch for a follow up.
okay,
Sebastian also recommended Viz Pro Fluid Interaction Parametric Modeling.
that was it. Viz Pro. Yeah, I think that's the one I was thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of options out there, but I think that was the one.
Let's
Yeah,
see
Fluid
here.
Interactive. That's right. Thank you, Sebastian.
Sorry, I'm looking for more
Okay.
questions.
I'm looking too.
Let me sc-
What are the extensions you would list as must-haves? Funny you should
Yeah,
ask.
I was gonna ask that one. Scroll back.
Last Wednesday, I did a video about an hour and a half, I guess it was 2 hours, of my top 10 extensions. And they just kind of ended up being extensions that I use a lot, and I find as kind of general purpose for the most part. Till the end, we got into a specific workflow. But yeah, I would check out that video. And I think somebody went through and actually bookmarked each of the extensions in the comments. So if you scroll down in the comments, one of them has actually tags for or bookmarks for each of the specific extensions that I mentioned. So that was pretty cool. That was nice.
So Isuru has asked this several times, and so I can't ignore it. How would you model something like the Gherkin building? Are you familiar with the Gherkin building?
Is it a small pickle?
It looks it looks like a giant small pickle.
I don't know. Can you throw a image up
I'll
onto
stick.
our forum?
Yeah, I'll stick a picture on there.
All right.
It's basically, it looks kind of like a rocket, and it's got this kind of this rotating helix kind of pattern to the stuff. But let me stick a picture up there, unless he beats me to it. It's in London, Colin said.
It's a race.
Colin being our resident English fellow.
Our resident Londoner.
Yeah, our token Englishman. I need to be able to save this flipping image now. Oh, Tyson wants to know the best place to find that video. I think probably our YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it should be actually if you go up to the top and hit videos. We've been doing a lot of videos lately, like 5 a week. So there's a lot of content out there. But if you do go in there, you can just go right to the top and click videos, and then it'll be, it's by date that we publish them, so you can work back. So I think it's called something like Top 10 Extensions or something like that. I don't know. Something that would get hits on the YouTube searching tag deal there. Okay.
All right, the Gherkin is live.
All right.
On the internet.
So if we come over to here, and if I just reach back here and I can just scroll it down. There we go. All right, so if I was to model this building right here, it's a good question. I guess it would come down to if it was a thing we wanted to model exactly like this, or if it was just kind of the general shape we wanted to create. Because I would probably, I don't know, maybe do a series of shapes and then connect them this way. So actually segment my circle so there's many as whatever this dimension or this line right here, see that? However many of those there are around, I would create a circle that size. Then I would create this, half of this shape, this profile like this. Do a follow me to create the exterior shape. And then I would connect a section of those pieces diagonally as I worked my way around like that. All right, that was thinking out loud. That was some process happening. I don't know what that was. All right, so I'm going to come in here. All right, so this is going to be a super quick example. Maybe this is a model we do in the future. We'll see.
Isuru also wanted to know how come your computer is buttery smooth?
Because I butter
So
it.
if you want that as a talking point as you go, well, there you go. Grass-fed,
You guys don't
unsalted.
put dairy products on your computers? I can't say that there's anything specific. We have out of the box Macs, and I'll say that I've just always been fairly happy with Macs in general. All right, so I'm going to take this shape. I say follow me with this shape. That's going to give me that initial shape. I'm going to grab all of this. I am going to, what is going on? I'm having some issues. I spend a lot of time changing my screen setup, my exterior cameras, my audio equipment as I do different things, meetings, recordings, live streams. And sometimes I should really just be shutting it all down and starting over because, yeah, something's going on with my UI now. And I think it's because of it's probably on my monitor upstairs or something. So I'm going to say that. And now what I would do is I would take a line like this and I would trace this. I'm not going to do this all the way because that's a lot of sitting here watching me click. But I would take that all the way around. Then I would take that.
Maybe you could stitch it together.
Fine, I'm almost there. And again,
Sorry, everybody.
I didn't watch my numbers on this, but I would do something like this. So I'd grab this, take that all the way down there, and now I'm going to grab these lines that I just created, and then I will make those lines into a
While you're doing that,
group.
Dave posted a Dave posted a picture on the forum of how he would use layout to get that.
Oh, perfect.
That focus thing for Nate. So Nate, go look on our forum.
So I would do that.
That's pretty good. That's less than 5 minutes worth of work.
So something like
it sort
that.
of trivializes the genius of the architect that actually did the original building, doesn't it?
Oh, he did a great job.
He's fine. He's fine.
He did excellent work. Yeah, so then you could go from there and start adding colors, breaking things apart, window trim, whatever. So, yeah, something like that. All right.
So now there's so many people helping. I don't know when someone's asking a new question or answering a question I'm about to do. Transom said, could you model like you did the spiral or like a screw thread and then squeeze it with a plugin?
Actually, if you guys, this is hard. I'm trying to remember what this is even called, but we did an extension, or not an extension. It was just native where we did a bunch of spirals and talked about scaling geometry and that sort of thing. I don't even remember what it was called or how we'd look it up on YouTube. But once you connect geometry like that and start scaling, you can actually create this sort of deformation pretty easy. I just didn't remember the steps and didn't want to jump into it without remembering it. But at the same time, yeah, you could probably use, I think Fredo Scale might have something in there to create a bulge like that. That's possible as well.
This is a good one. This is probably a lot of people might already know it, but how do you avoid excess zooming? It's probably worth just talking about how zooming works based on your cursor.
Yeah, so one of the big things people don't get is, and I'm just going to put this aside, so we're not even going to, we're just going to talk about this right here, just with the mouse. When you zoom in and out, it actually looks at the pixel that is under the tip of the arrow. So as I zoom in and out, it's always looking right there. one of the things people have a hard time with is they get weird zooming because they'll be hovered over nothing and zoom, and then it can be kind of odd, or it can go real super slow because the geometry you're on is real close to the camera. So if I come in here like this, and let's go this way. If I come on to this piece right here, so all of a sudden my zooming is super slow right now because I'm getting real close to that line. That's something else to notice is your speed will slow down as you get closer and closer to a surface. So whereas I'm out here, I'm zooming real quick with just a small roll of the mouse, just a teeny bit is going to zoom me way in and out. As I get closer and closer, it's going to get slower and slower and slower. So you can see here, I'm just zoom, 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 until eventually I break through to the other side. So I don't know what excessive zooming is, but
I think that's probably it. Is sometimes like if you just put your cursor in the wrong spot,
yeah,
especially when you don't have anything else in the model. I've definitely run into that a lot more in a fresh, clean model. It doesn't really know how fast to zoom anywhere.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely
Transform
about where your mouse is.
Transform also selected or suggested zoom selection.
Yeah, so
which
that's
is
if I select something. Is there anything that's not? I'm going to explode this. If I grab just this circle right here, you right click and say zoom selection, it'll blow that up so it fills your screen up. So that's actually really nice. A lot of people don't like that. Colin, who's on the forum here, actually said that he has assigned that to a shortcut key to speed up his modeling. So he can actually just pick on something and hit his shortcut key and it'll zoom in and fill the window. So that's pretty cool too.
I'm fairly certain that I've never used that function. I might not have known what it was doing whenever I looked at it.
Everybody can learn something new every day. Even you, Jody.
Yay. Speaking of Colin, he answered a question that John Doherty had asked from YouTube, which is there a way to copy a component from a model on one project into a project in the web version? Colin confirmed that you can copy from one SketchUp model and paste to another SketchUp model, even in the web version, which would have been my answer in the client.
Awesome.
I didn't know you could in the web.
The other thing,
Dave also suggested.
Oh, go ahead.
3D Warehouse.
Yeah, 3D Warehouse, or save it locally, or save it to Trimble Connect. The thing about components is they're just SketchUp models. So once I create a component, what I can do is I can take that component, save as, and I can put it anywhere. So I could save it to my desktop, I could upload it somewhere, and then in the new model, I can just say import and pull that file right back in. So it's just a SketchUp model once you create a component. So any way you would transfer a component between places, like I said, 3D Warehouse is great, your own computer's good, your clipboard's nice, Trimble Connect, any of those will allow you to take your model, put it there, go into something else, and then pull it back in.
Oh, Colin clarified and made a liar out of me. He said qualification, what he said was copy and paste works in the web version if you stay in the same window. So maybe you can't go from tab to tab.
Oh.
That's unfortunate.
So copy, close, open the new one, paste.
Maybe.
Something like that. Maybe.
That didn't seem like a good one. Mark on Facebook suggested, he said in a future program and then said do it a 5-minute. That'd be a really short future video. So maybe you can do it now. Klein bottle. Are you familiar with Klein bottles?
Yes, I am, and still no.
It's the new onion dome.
I did a Mobius strip. Isn't that good enough? I mean, gee.
What have you done for me lately?
I know, it's been forever. We could. Yeah, maybe. How's that?
Fine. It's fine. You can put that off to maybe that's a Wednesday thing. Although Wednesday you're going to try and do some, like technical stuff, right?
Yeah, we got some more machine parts for Wednesday. Maybe I'll think about that because I'm kind of thinking what would be a simple model with a little bit of radial bending from Fredo scale and then some stitching. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if I can do it in 5 minutes though. That's the big question.
The 5 minutes. I mean, maybe he can do it in 5 minutes, and so maybe what we need to do is invite him to make a video and post it.
Oh, I thought you were calling me out. I thought that's where that was going.
No, he said 5 minutes, so that would suggest he thinks it's possible. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Jerry on YouTube has asked kind of a loaded question. He said, how does SketchUp compare with AutoCAD?
It depends on what you're comparing, really. I know it sounds like a smart guy answer, um, but they're both drawing programs. Technically, they're both CAD. I think they both have their own strengths and weaknesses. A lot of people ask that question, why should I have this instead of this? And we at SketchUp pretty much say, if you're designing something, there's a good chance you might need more than one software package. So we do have people who have switched from AutoCAD and use exclusively SketchUp and Layout, and that works. We have a lot of people who do their 3D models either initially or the full way through production inside of SketchUp, but use AutoCAD for their output. So yeah, I would say that the big differences are price, learnability, and usability. I think all of those pretty much go towards SketchUp. It's definitely easier to spin up on it, usually quicker to use, and cost significantly less than AutoCAD. But really, as far as which one should you use or which one should, it really depends on your workflow. And there's a good chance that you'll get the most by having both.
Nice. Well, well stated. Very,
Thanks.
very
I know that wasn't very
tactful.
salesman-y. I never really got, oh, get rid of that other stuff. Just use this. That's it.
Andy H. asked if you can see a practical use in the BIM environment. Or he said practical us, but I'm assuming it's use. Or maybe you just want to talk about the BIM environment. You have thoughts, you have opinions.
I have a lot of opinions about that word. Okay. I slammed my hands down a little bit.
You're the
too
one that
hard
asked
on
for this Q&A thing.
This
You're the
folding
one
card
to do
table
this.
didn't like my. Okay. Here's what I think. So really, the thing about BIM is it is a term that's used all the time, and it means something different to so many people. Some people say BIM when they mean a 3D model. Some people say BIM when they mean data in a model. Some people refer to spreadsheets as being their BIM. So it's a hard question to say, what do you think about BIM? Because
so he's asking for practical use. Maybe have you found something that you do that is BIM-like?
Yeah,
that actually applies to as useful to the way you use SketchUp?
I think with components, either just the component data that you can put in here. So if I make a component, reporting upon basic information like this is super easy functionality to add on top of what you're already using. Along with that, using things like generate report to get lists of materials or prices out of something, or something like cut list or estimator to do the same. From where I come from, my background is architectural design, so designing buildings. So for me, BIM was lists of materials or properties, that kind of thing. So it's super easy to get a door schedule or a list of your building components out of a model. So when I think about that level of BIM, that data is super easy to put into SketchUp and report upon. So that's where I go with practical BIM myself. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks.
Hey, no problem.
Is there a way to have a set of materials in a template that will be preserved beyond the purge all command without them being physically in the model?
No.
I don't think I've seen a way to do that.
No, Purge gets rid of anything that is not on your screen. There's not a way to hold on to components outside of that. So yeah, Purge is scorched earth type stuff that it doesn't care who you are, what you're doing. It's going to just wipe it all out.
It pours and tills salt onto your screen.
It'll never grow again. Yeah, no, there's Purge is just it absolutely, if you're not looking at it when you hit zoom extents, it's going to be gone. So yeah, no.
Is there an easy way to cut off all of the angled ends, for example, Redwood lattice, after you make all the slats? I think that's probably a intersect with model kind of thing, right? So imagine you made a lattice and then all of your boards extended past each other and you need to trim them
Yes,
along a line.
absolutely. Then it would just be a, oh, come here. Come back in here. Yeah, it would just be, I would just say SolidWorks or Solid Tools. Got me thinking about other software packages. So if I take this to 45, and if I was to that was a terrible lattice. Oh, I didn't make them components? Oh, come on, new guy. All right, let's use an extension real quick. All right.
You know, rather than rotate, you could just make a copy and flip along the red axis, green axis.
One could. So if I wanted to cut these right here, right across here, right? So right where this would cut across, like that. What I could do is I could create a surface, pull that surface into a shape like this, make this a component, or group, that one doesn't really matter so much. And then I can just go into my solid tools, select this piece right here is the cutter, and say trim this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, and then come back the other way. Each of these trimmed. Did I get that one? And then if I delete that piece, they're all just cut off right there. So yeah, solid tools would be the easiest way that I could think of doing that. That's a good question.
Looks pretty good. Michael Burley a little while ago asked, well, this isn't necessarily SketchUp related, but he's doing remote classes. I think a lot of people are doing that, so I felt like maybe this is a little topical. He wanted to know about your setup, cameras, streaming software, etc.
Sure.
He was suggesting you could even stick around after the fact, but if you want to talk about it now, or if you want to just plug, maybe they can reach out to you on the forum too.
I could just give everybody just a 5-minute, here's the way it's all set up, is I actually run SketchUp on this computer and have another computer right over there that's actually doing the streaming. That takes a lot of load off of this computer, so you don't hear like the fan running constantly, because all this is doing is running SketchUp. And then through HDMI output, it goes into a box that converts HDMI to USB and then goes into the streaming computer. And then I have a camera here, and then a second camera right down here. And these cameras go into it along with the camera above, that all go into the streaming computer. And in OBS, I just compile what you see on your screen and then stream that to something we call Restream. Restream then sends it out to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch all at once. So that's my nutshell setup here.
And Restream is that thing that keeps duplicating my posts whenever I try and type something.
That's the one.
Curse you, Restream.
Real quick, to jump back one, Blake asked, what was that extension? I assume that was the one where I selected and I said, convert into components. This is an extension called groups to components, I think. And then that's exactly what it does. It finds groups that are the same and makes them all into components.
Now I'm going to go try and find that.
All right.
I should just leave this window open, huh? Calvin Roy asked if there's a way to import audio or video or attach it to a file.
If you can put it somewhere, you can share a URL through either model info or component information. Anytime I create a component, that's not a component, this is a component. I can share any of this data right here, including URL, so that could link to a video or audio. There's not a way to embed that data into it. Kadi was saying, I'm not 100% sure, is that part of Selection Toys, converting groups into components? I can't remember what I have installed anymore.
There's a groups to components extension from TomTom,
Okay.
who made the selection tools.
And it might actually be part of Selection Toys also. I just can't remember.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay, Kadi's saying that
if he's done anything, it is now? Okay.
He's saying it's part of Selection Toys also. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So if you have video or audio data, I would recommend uploading it somewhere, putting the YouTube link into a component, or I believe here in model info, you can put, where is it? Right here. You can put data into the general model info, so you could actually put links or something like that into the description. Awesome.
So I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure if I understand what they're asking. But Giovanni on Facebook said, if you had two squares over each other on the same plane, is there a way to move one forward of the other?
It sounds like it's talking about what we would call layering. So if I had this, I'm going to make it a group. So if what you're talking about is how do I make this one be in front of this one, SketchUp's a 3D model, so you would do that by physically moving it vertically in front of one another. If they're on the same plane, then they're, here, I'm going to do this too. I'm going to come in here and make this Z fight. So if I take this and I move it down so it's in the same plane as that one, there's not a way to say I prefer to see this over this. It's a 3D model, so there is no, just like in 3D space, if you take one piece of paper and put it on top of another, you see the paper that's on top. So if that's what you're asking, the solution is to move it closer to wherever you're viewing from, and then it'll be in front.
Look at that. Fancy. Manos on Facebook said, most of the time when I'm working in a full floor plan, for instance, inside a house with a lot of furniture, I cannot pick up something because becoming foggy, and then I have to click on the sky to be okay.
It sounds like you're going into a component when you do that. If everything's becoming foggy, so if you're zoomed in on something and if this happens, you don't have to go out to the sky. You can actually just tap the escape key, and that'll close the component you're in. There was a question.
Oh, here's a good one.
Is it from Eli Ellis on Facebook?
No, it's from Dennis on Facebook, but we can go back and look at Eli first.
I was just going to say,
we use SketchUp to model things.
Yeah.
Model things we build in wood and metal. Recently purchased a CNC router for the shop. Software that came with CNC seems to prefer SVG files. Do you have any tips for exporting and drawing to SVG? Aside from the CNC router we have now, what's the best way to make SketchUp and CNC router speak the same language? That's a great topical one there.
Yeah, SVG is not a native export from SketchUp. I'm guessing SimLabs has an SVG exporter, but I don't know for sure.
Well, and sometimes like it's worth checking the CNC software to see if it'll import something else. Because I mean, if you can get, because DWG you can usually get, or even.
Well, I was going to say most people seem to work with DXF for export, which is, I mean, whatever the file type you use is, obviously use what you need to use with the exporter or with the CNC. But generally speaking, it seems like DXF goes into most CAD/CAM software. So I'm not sure if that's an option. If you have to have SVG, then you can export a DXF and convert it to SVG. Or like I said, I'm pretty sure SimLabs has an SVG exporter as well.
Pull up SimLab there.
So
SimLabs is a third-party application, not an extension.
Right.
Man, there's so many uses of the word SimLabs. I don't even know how to find their
All right.
website.
So I'm gonna jump up while you're doing that. I'm gonna throw out Dennis on Facebook's question says, I'm confused about the untagged layer and how it should be utilized. Let me just do this. This is going to be super simple. This is it. This little pencil should always just stay on untagged. Everything I draw, all raw geometry, should always stay untagged. Then, as I grab geometry, as I make things, and I put them into groups, these groups then can go onto other tags. What that does is it gives me the ability to toggle things on and off to show them. But inside the group still, if I come into the group, all this geometry is still marked as untagged. And there's a reason as to why that happens and the issues it causes when you start putting geometry on other tags, but I'm not going to dive into it in this right now. But that's the general rule of thumb, is all base geometry should stay on untagged, and then as you create things, anytime you model something, it should go into a container. So even if you're I'm just going to model a doorknob all by itself, that doorknob should end up in a container. Everything should go into either a group or component at some point in the modeling process. And then those pieces, those things, are what get tagged with specific tags. And then the purpose of tags right now is the purpose of visibility. So tags are there to toggle on and off visibly in SketchUp and in layout. So that's tags in a nutshell.
Okay, so SimLabs doesn't appear to do SVG, but whenever I do a search for SVG on the extension warehouse, it links both to Faber, which is a third party or an extension / site for getting to your CNC. And then there's an extension called Face SVG, which is an SVG export for faces.
I would totally recommend checking out Faber. That's from a guy called Eric Schimmelfinny, and he is a good friend of SketchUp's, and he is launching this thing called Faber, which is supposed to streamline, which I say supposed to, it sounds like I'm cynical. What it does is streamline the connection between SketchUp and CNC, where it actually takes your model, helps you break it down, exports that SVG file. Yeah, check out Faber. Absolutely, go see Faber.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that Eric he's been doing most of the CNC, I guess all of the CNC really, like if you've been to a SketchUp booth in the last 5 years,
yeah,
and there's plywood anywhere, whether it's a table or a backdrop or anything, it's all Eric's the guy doing that.
Yeah. I just want to jump in. Dennis, I was not trying to blow off the explanation. It's just in a nutshell, it can cause problems in the stability of your model if you start putting raw geometry onto other layers. I don't remember the exact issues. That's why I don't remember exactly the terms to use as far as what happens. But if you start putting stuff on other layers, it can actually cause problems in how SketchUp stores your model. So that's why I just say don't do it. There are videos out there that talk about the actual corruption, though.
Without there actually being a technical problem, there's always the fact that, say, if you put something on layer or on tag B, and then you go back to editing something on tag A, any change you make on tag A or untagged is going to affect every single, if it touches anything on any ungrouped geometry on any tag, then it's going to overwrite it, or it's going to merge with it.
Yeah,
right. I don't think there's a technical problem. That's just a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem. That's for sure.
I don't like it. I'll tell you that. What extension do you recommend for complex pitched roofs with barrel type roofing?
I personally just use Solid Tools for any roof stuff like that. Modeling the geometry, intersecting the geometry. I wouldn't use an extension. I don't use an extension personally. Chuck Valley does have something called Instant Roof, which does some of that roofing stuff. It's worth checking out. He actually goes beyond just the shape of roofs too, and does things like shingles and all that additional geometry. If you're worried about trusses, Medeek, Medeek, has a truss, a framing utility that actually puts the framing in. So it depends on what part you're looking for. Personally, as far as just geometry goes, I like just using groups and components and intersecting. So that's my thought. Personally, that's me personally.
That's good. It's good to have thoughts. Good on you for thinking.
I do my best. Not too much, though.
Manos asked if we ever do night live, which I guess depends on the area, or do we save these, which I think we already covered. You can always catch any of these old live streams on, what'd you say, everywhere.
YouTube is the best place.
Both Facebook. Yeah. It's easy to find on YouTube.
Yeah. But we do have people who occasionally type into the comments on the recorded videos and then ask why I don't reply or ever talk to them. I can't. It's not live, I'm usually not there anymore when you're watching it. Sometimes I'll see the comment after the fact and reply to it, but yeah, it's hard for me to talk to you when it's days, weeks, or months after this has been recorded.
Well, that's the thing about you, is you're just always live. You don't live in the past, man.
That's right. Now, who cares what happened before? Now is what's happening.
So this, I don't know, we might have talked a little bit when you were saying which is better. Would you use components when you have multiples of something you plan to edit later versus groups? Short answer, easy answer.
So there are so many discussions on this on the forum too, as far as should you use groups or components. Dave, who is on, Dave's still on here, he makes everything a component all the time. That's his way of thinking. Some people have different rules about using groups based on if it's going to be copied or not. Some people say groups are collections of components, where you make everything that's a thing as a component, but if you have a bunch of them together that need to stay together, then you group that. It comes down to your preference and how you're using it. I know it seems like a cop-out answer, but there's not a set way that you have to do it, and that really comes down to you. I have an issue that I run into personally with components, because these two things are components. They're a copy of the same thing. And the issue that I run into is I'll take this one and I'll copy it and I'll move over to the other side of my model, and I'll do something like, oh, I gotta grab this and I gotta make a modification here because this is gonna be functioning differently, and I forget about these guys over here that now that I did that have screwed my geometry up. So I run into that problem a lot. Of course, you can fix that by right-clicking on a component and saying make unique. Now this is a unique component, so if I do select this, it won't affect these other components because this is essentially a new thing. And if you're really good at that, that works. But I know I've done that. I've actually done it on live a couple times where I go change something and then have to undo a couple times because of that. So like I said, unfortunately, there's not a pat answer that this is how you have to do it. But that's one of the things to think about, is how you're actually using it and what's going to work best, components or groups, based on the thing that you're modeling.
So Tricky asked a question, which I think there's probably a more broad answer. He said, is there any chance SketchUp will ever export to 3MF? But probably could just be will SketchUp ever export into any specific format?
I don't know what 3MF is. What SketchUp has chosen to do is export to the most commonly used Exchange files. So these aren't necessarily specific. The issue comes to this. CAD packages, hardware interface, other 3D modeling softwares, paint programs, whatever it is, they all have their own proprietary file formats. And the fact is, SketchUp can't stay on top of and export to every one of those file formats. It would be our full-time, that's all we would do for a given release, is say, we now support more file formats. And then anytime anybody changes it, we'd have to go back and update our exporter so it works now with the new stuff. It would be all we would do. So what we've chosen is to use these 13 2D and 3D file formats and export to them because they're the most commonly used crossover file formats. So people always say, will you export to blah, blah, blah? And usually the answer is, it's unlikely. Anything's possible. It's unlikely, but there's a good chance that other software package imports one of these file formats. So that's usually the answer is unfortunately you probably have to use a crossover file, which is what most of these are intended for. So that would be my quick answer there.
Quick-ish answer.
Quickish, yeah, quick for the next 2 minutes.
So Ray on Facebook said, any chance you could show how to remove something from an existing group?
Sure. If I go in here and select it and delete it, it is now no longer in the group.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So just double if you want to modify a group, just double click to enter it, and then it's just geometry. It's just SketchUp at that point.
You might be happy to hear that Y Mitchell over on Twitch has learned more watching your videos this week, that he fell back in love with SketchUp, or she.
Welcome back to the fold.
Right, it's nice. It's always good to bring people back in.
Yeah, and I appreciate hearing that. That means that I'm not doing this for nothing.
So Cowboy USA just joined us, and first of all, he'll probably be excited to hear that we're going to do more machine parts on Wednesday.
Yes.
But then he also asked if there are any free or inexpensive extensions for designing machine parts.
I mean, a machine part's really just a 3D model, and it's kind of just what SketchUp does. So if there's a specific part of designing that you had a question on, we can dive into that. I don't know of any extensions that are just machine part design tools. So yeah, maybe if there's something in particular as part of the workflow that you were looking to speed up with an extension, you might be able to find something, but I don't know of anything that's geared just towards that, other than, I would say, use solid tools, probably.
All right. Go Fly Drone just got a 3D mouse, and he's learning how to use it in SketchUp, and he's looking for any tips, any hints to get used to it.
So
here's my example of this. I always remember when my parents first got a computer, my dad would play solitaire all the time, and I realized that inadvertently solitaire is basically how to teach people how to use a mouse.
That you know, I remember starting, and that was what when I started training, it was a ridiculous setup. I was 18 years old, and the people I was training were primarily structural engineers in their 60s. We could do other stories there, but that was one of the things that someone else who was a trainer told me is, if people are having a hard time, when you take a break, pull up solitaire and just tell them to play that for 10 minutes while you take a break, because that's all it is. It's just moving your mouse. I suggested earlier on this stream to take your mouse, go into your settings, and disable your middle button, disable your scroll wheel altogether so you can't orbit or zoom with it, and then use your 3D mouse solely for a day or two. It's going to be extremely frustrating for the first hour, less frustrating for the next couple hours, and then hopefully after a day or two of it, you're just flying through it. So, one other thing, if anybody out there gets a 3D mouse, if you look in your menu, this is incredibly important. Object mode versus helicopter mode. Object mode says this mouse is oriented as if you were holding your whole 3D model in your hand. So as I turn this way, it's as if I was turning my hand this way and this, like this. Helicopter mode is totally the opposite. It says if you were in you had your camera in a helicopter and you're on the outside, if I turn this way, it's going to turn my helicopter around like I'm flying on the outside of it looking in. I don't know which is better. Personally, for me, object mode, like I'm designing this thing, even if it's as big as a house or a landscape, I want it to be a thing that I put in my hand and I'm spinning it around in the orientation like this. So that's extremely important. Check that. It's usually in the menu or the click button on the side of your 3D mouse. Make sure you're watching that. And I mentioned this last time, rotation center, make sure auto's turned on, because otherwise it'll spin around whatever is selected, and that can be rough if it's off screen.
So where did that go? So Nathaniel Wilkerson had suggested to Cowboy fillets. Is fillets an actual extension? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know.
Being a useful
Is there an
thing to
extension
learn
just
from.
called that?
That's what I'm looking to see. I see there's an extension called milling tools, which sounds to me like a machining, an extension for
Not an
machining.
extension. He's just saying learn how to do it.
Okay. All right, fine. Ray chimed back in, said that he groups his groups. He likes to group his groups and sometimes needs to remove one of the groups, but needs to keep the group. So deleting is not a solution. Remember earlier when you just
Oh, so you're trying
just
to,
glibly clicked the thing and deleted it?
so you have a collection of pieces and you take one out of the group. If that's what you're saying, then here's what I would do. So I'm going to take all of these pieces, make them a group, and then I want to take out this one. So what I do is I'll come in, grab it, I'll hit Command X, or you go to File and Cut, exit the group, edit, paste in place, and now this is in the same spot, but it's not part of the larger group. Maybe that's it.
Maybe so. And then Dave just chimed in with this. As far as extensions, Frito corner or round corner is what Mr. Richards likes to use for fillets.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a
type
good one.
of behavior. So Gary Badger, this might be a technical problem. He said he's a woodworker and will dimension parts in SketchUp within a group or component. And then after exiting the group or component, the dimension moves to a different position. Why?
I don't know because I haven't specifically seen that. Gary, if you have an example that you could actually share, hop up on the forum. You can share it in this Q&A, live Q&A today, or you can start your own topic and just share a file. Then somebody can hop in and actually take a look at what's going on. I don't know exactly what would cause that, but I'm sure we could figure something out. Okay, looks like Ray approved that answer.
Yay. I like approval.
Well, we are coming up on 2 hours, so I'm going to throw out a last call.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not sure if I understand this question. How can you make something disappear and put it back? Undo, Control Z.
That'll do it. Yeah, undo. Undo has 100 steps. So if you make something disappear and want it to come back. Oh, are you talking about putting it on a tag? If I grab this piece and I put it on one specific tag, I can turn that tag on and off, which will make that disappear or reappear. Maybe that.
Oh, that's so much better than my glib answer.
The other option is to select something. There is a hide function inside of SketchUp. Hide takes it and says, don't show this to me regardless of the state of tags. That's okay. I usually recommend saying, I only use hide if it's temporary. Like, I just need to get this out of my way. I need to do something and put it right back. That's the only time I'll use hide. The problem with hide is to unhide it, you either have to use the unhide command, which gives you two options: unhide everything that's hidden, or unhide the last thing you hid, which isn't great. Or come in here and say, show me my hidden geometry, or show me my hidden things, find them, and say unhide. Either one is okay, but it's not quite as maintainable as properly tagging things and then switching visibility using your tags. So I don't know if that was a question or not, but that's my thought.
I want to throw a shout out for the outliner, because the outliner lets you go through and hide objects all day long, right? We never talk about the outliner, and it's so awesome.
Great, but apparently on my other monitor, maybe? I don't know where my outliner went.
Oh, it's on mine. How weird. Oh. So this is a technical problem would come up back in the days when I did tech support on a regular basis. I've lost my X window, and yeah, another monitor, or used to be on another monitor, and you've unplugged from that monitor and it's still trying to open on that monitor.
Yeah, and I'm just having issues with that, just like today. I don't know why. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. I normally don't have a problem with that, but you know, every once in a while, I find my computer just wants to be turned off and not put to sleep and then woke up again. So maybe it's just time to just shut her all down, bring it all back.
So I am curious, because sitting next to you and being there every morning whenever you hooked up your computer, Does your computer behave better at home than it did in the office?
No, I'm still having this problem where every time I start my computer, within the first 5 minutes of starting it up, it freezes. And it just sits there for a minute or so. So I have to plan that ahead of time, open my laptop and then go do something and then come back. I don't know what that is.
Okay. Are you opposed to using reset workspace right now so you can play with the outliner?
I think it's going to, yeah.
Actually,
Hey, I'll do it.
it might be kind of late.
Yeah, see, did you see what just happened there? My
No.
Windows just jumped. I don't know. I can
that's
try
fun.
it. I think it's gonna get rid of all my windows, but now I can come back in here, turn on my outliner. Maybe that'll fix my problem. But yeah, this is a nice way to, well, if everything wasn't named group.
This would be a good reason why you make components and name them.
Exactly. So if I do grab a specific piece and then hide it, to work without having to have hidden geometry on all the time, I can come in and take my hidden items and turn them on and off.
Do you have a skill builder for this?
What's that?
Do you have a skill builder for outliner?
I do. Yeah, it's actually an older one. It's one of the first. It was within the first year that I started doing videos, but it still all holds true. I will just say that we have been making changes to the software that make using the outliner a more essential tool. So actually keeping outliner open as you go through and work through models is a great way to do this stuff. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Jody. Keep an eye on outliner if you have to hide things.
Yeah. Well, and it's also just gotten, with 2020, it just got incrementally better. Yeah. So were we going to try and get any other questions in here?
How about two
Orangutan
more?
on Twitch wanted to know how to change specific line color.
There's two things you have to do. One is in your styles. Here we go. In styles, you have to have your style that you're working in set right here. Oh, that's that one. Where's the one I was just in? Oh, there we go. So if I go to edit, this is odd.
What's going on here?
I can't edit.
Do you need
my
to select
styles.
something? That's weird.
Yeah, I got a thing happening right now. I'm not really.
Wait, are you editing style in model?
Yeah. I don't have. It's not showing me the name of my styles, nor letting me edit them. This is new.
Nice. Look at you.
Yeah, so normally it's as simple as changing from all the same to by material. All right, I'm gonna do this. Oh, I can't quit SketchUp either.
Looks like I have a YouTube celebrity visiting us today, Mr. Swan.
Hey, Izzy. I was just chatting with Mr. Izzy Swan earlier. We were talking about his own social media platform, the Maker's Playground, which is pretty cool spot to hang out. He showed up just in time to see me not be able to use SketchUp. Great. Yeah, won't let me close either. So I'm guessing I have a window open somewhere that I can't see, or
It still didn't make it didn't explain why it's not visible. Like everything is grayed out.
Yeah, I don't know what's. That's awesome. That's a good time. Yeah. So as I was saying, let's wrap this thing.
Someone asking about outliner. It's been around. Do you remember what version outliner came out? It's been around since at least SketchUp 8, right?
Yeah, it's been around a long time. It didn't
maybe since
do
6.
everything it does now, and there was actually some performance issues in recent versions, but those have been in Windows specifically. Windows had this lag associated with Outliner if you had it open while you're modeling, but those have been, or we're working on those, I think. I don't know if they're better in 2020 or if that's still in progress, but that's pretty cool.
I think there's a lot of performance fixes in the Windows version. On the Mac version, I don't think they've got them all plugged down. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think Cody suggested, and I agree, it's probably worth doing a new one because there's been a number of updates to make it worth it. Oh, maybe. So Sturkin suggested maybe since you've got so many styles in there, you just need to pick an object. Oh, or you just do a new document. That also works.
No, I guess
Wilbert wants to know
something's
how to make
definitely going on that's not right,
Okay.
because it's not even letting me quit it. All right. One moment, please. All right.
All right.
Let's hop back in there. You know, that falls in. Remember, that's the effort I'm making right now. Is if there's a problem, just get through it, get over it, get through it. Stop trying to figure out what's going on. Just move on. Move
This
on.
isn't a troubleshooting live stream.
That's right.
This is a Q&A.
Which we've all seen me struggle with that. I need answers. All right, so it looks like all of my windows have shown up again. Okay, so quick answer to what you were asking. Oh, this is a mess. All this stuff floating around. All right, so quick answer to what you're asking.
Oh,
Here, I'm just gonna draw a box. So if I go into my styles and I say edit, right here, right now, it's all the same. So all my lines are gonna be black no matter what I do. But what I can do is change to by material. And then what I can do is, it takes a little bit of precision, but I can actually grab a color and come in and apply it to a line rather than just to a face. So you can see that those are red now. This actually works real good in conjunction with like selecting first. It's easier to select a bunch of lines first and then grab a color and fill them because their selection gets colored. So yeah, it is possible to color an individual line like that.
And then you can also do it by layer, or I mean by tag, and you also do it by axis, right? Are those both defined in styles?
So by axes is part of the styles. So if I come in here to the same settings for this style, I can come in here and I can, which actually, by axes. This is a great tool if you're working on models that are supposed to be like nice straight lines. This will actually color code everything based on the axes it's parallel to. That's an awesome option also. The question was, coloring one line.
Yeah,
That's
true.
you do it by material. The other options, if I actually change that by material, because I can come into tags, and I can say color by tag, and it'll color everything, including the edges, to the color set for that specific tag. So if I add another tag, I can come in here and change this tag to a different tag, and that's going to keep the color based on the tag color in the tag window. So that's an option too.
All right, it's officially 2:00. Any more questions or?
I think we're probably good. It seems like we're petering out at this point too. Yeah, I think so. I think we're good. We had a lot of people telling me to force quit. You were all right. I did it. I did it.
I like the reboot suggestion. That would be exciting because it would bring us all down.
Good times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it for today. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. That was a couple hours of great questions. Thank you so much for bringing it all in. Hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully you learned, and hopefully you come back on Wednesday. Wednesday we'll do a model along where we'll do more step-by-step creation. We'll go. I found some more drawings for machine parts, so very accurate, specific dimensions that we'll be working with. We'll get those input drawn up, maybe exported. We'll see, and yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. So come back Wednesday, same time. That's noon Mountain Time, UTC -6. If you don't know, just go to forums.sketchup.com. I'll create something probably this afternoon and pin it to the top that says something like model along machine parts live. It'll be very creative, something
Well,
along those lines.
it's 46 hours from now, so you could just start counting down.
Yeah, that's an option too. If it's easier to count 46 hours than to remember, same time this started on Wednesday, your call.
Whatever.
Giz on YouTube asked about my personal channel. If you do want to hang out with me, I do have a personal channel, mostly on Instagram. It's Aaron Making Stuff. I'm trying to post that. This whole coronavirus has not left me being real inspired to make things, which I probably gotta get on top of. So if you need more of this, which I can't see how that would happen, you can follow me over there also.
I've gotten super productive at cleaning my shop.
Jody's been making things to organize his things. That's where he's at. So that's not,
You gotta be
not what I
somewhere.
got going on. All right.
I'll make things to organize your things.
We should probably wrap it now.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you for showing up. Jody, thank you for helping out with questions.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, hopefully we see you all Wednesday. If not Wednesday, we'll be back here Friday, and then we'll be back here Monday again. So that's plenty of us. So thank you guys so much. Thanks for hanging out. And everybody, stay safe, stay sane, take care of yourself. And this is the big thing that I came across this week is give yourself grace. The whole world's gone nuts. Don't hold yourself to too high of a standard. It's okay to be a little nuts right now, I think. All right. Thank you, guys. We will see you all sometime in the future. Thank you.
See you next time.